Ah yes, El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure, one of the most famous, if not the most famous wooden roller coaster in the United States. El Toro was a huge bucket list coaster for me. I've been watching POVs of this ride since I was 12 years old on YouTube, all the way to the age of 20. The amount of hype I had for this ride between the POVs and the coaster community hyping and praising it up so much was unbelievable. And when I finally got to Six Flags Great Adventure and got the opportunity to walk up to El Toro's Plaza and got to see how absolutely massive this structure is, it's absolutely breathtaking. So with all this hype built up and all these sky-high expectations, what did I think about the ride? Well, let's break it down. Before I start talking about everything I love and hate about this ride, I'm going to read off some of the basic stats. El Toro opened to the public on June 12, 2006. El Toro is a prefabricated wooden roller coaster by Intamin, which basically means Intamin made all the parts and then shipped it out to the park and they put it together like Legos. El Toro is also very unique for featuring a cable lift, something you generally only find on steel coasters. Alright, now let's get into the stats. It's got a height of 181 feet, a drop of 176 feet, a top speed of 70 miles per hour, and a track length of 4,400 feet, and a duration of 1 minute and 42 seconds. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about its presentation. The first thing to note when you walk up to this ride is that it is absolutely massive. Like, there's one thing just walking by Voyage's first lift hill at Holiday World, and then there's another thing from looking at just massive Airtime Hill after massive Airtime Hill. The structure is just breathtaking. And especially when you're on the backside and you see it going alongside that little lake there with the fountain, it is such a beautiful view. And it's an awesome setting for the ride. I think it's in a primetime spot in the park too. I've also got to add this. It's definitely one of my favorite entrances and coaster signs that I have ever seen. As much as I want to praise its presentation for its absolute breathtaking structure, I know I could say that a million times, its theming on the other hand is pretty lackluster to say the least. El Toro is Spanish for the bull, and they did put horns and a bull with a nose ring on the train, or at least the front of it, so at least they're kind of on par with the bull theme. And one thing I do never hear talked about much is the architecture of the station. It's got some Spanish inspiration, so that's kind of cool, but other than that, the theming is literally non-existent. Next up, let's talk about the layout and my experience of the ride. Now before I say how good or bad the layout is, let's just talk about what the layout is on paper. This will make more sense here in a few minutes. The first thing you'll do out of the station is go up that 181-foot lift hill. And don't blink because that cable lift takes you up there really fast. Then you will plummet on that 176-foot drop. And that is one of the gnarliest drops I have ever been on in my life. If you're sitting in the back seat, this ride will Space Force you. You get yeeted so hard it's not even funny. It's so hard to explain because it feels like it lasts forever, but it's done and over with so quick. It very well could be the greatest drop I've ever been on. Next, you're sent into a giant 112-foot Airtime Hill. And if you thought that airtime off that first drop was insane, oh my goodness, you are in for a treat. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in the front, or the back, or the middle. You are getting Space Forced, once again. And if you thought getting Space Forced off the drop was insane, this is like Space Force times 2. Next, you're sent into another 100-foot Airtime Hill, and this one is literally just as strong as the first one. Then you take this pretty intense bank turn to the right, and then you go down into a little dip, and then take another pretty intense bank turn to the left, which sends you into another airtimeless hill. Wait, what? Did I just say airtimeless? Yeah, you heard me correctly. That hill coming off those two bank turns gives you absolutely nothing, even with as much speed as you have. You literally just roll over it. Oh yeah, and the next little hill after that, you just roll over that one too. I know, crazy right? You get Space Forced on the drop in the first two airtime hills, and then the next two airtime hills are super lame. I will give credit where credit is due. At this point in the ride, you keep a really good pace, and you have a ridiculous speed. So at least the fun factor is still there. Me being the enthusiast I am though, it definitely caught me off guard and really confused me during every single ride I had. Next you go up this little airtimeless hill, which then leads you into the helix that banks to the left, at a pretty good speed, and then you go into the rolling Thunder Hill. And hello, we're getting Space Forced again. What the heck? Again, front, back, middle, it doesn't matter. You are getting sent to the moon. This airtime moment definitely caught me off guard the most. Up until right after that rolling Thunder Hill, you have a really good pace still, and it's a very fun ride up until that point. Next, you take a bank turn to the right, and then a low to the ground bank turn to the left, and then a low to the ground banked helix to the right. That goes 360 degrees. Into a little airtimeless hill, into another little airtimeless hill, into another little airtimeless hill, and brake run. Once you reach this point in the ride, you rapidly lose all the good pacing I was talking about before. Going from the POVs and videos off-ride I'd watched going into the ride, I thought it would be pretty intense turns. But no, you just end up crawling through them, and they're extremely forceless. Now, I did ride it 3 times that day, twice in the morning and once in the evening. And the evening ride was a little bit faster through that section, but not much. Not enough to make a huge difference for me. It was also this part of the ride when I noticed it had a pretty significant rattle. Now if you look at this photo of the train here, you can see they have these weird shoulder guards on the side. You can also see that soft padding on the back, but it doesn't go all the way across, and my shoulder blades kept on making contact with the hard plastic part there. Maybe it's fiberglass, I don't know for sure. Either way, as someone who's 6 feet tall, it was super uncomfortable to keep hitting my shoulder on things. Now, I am willing to give this rattle the benefit of the doubt because I did ride it 4 days before it derailed, and maybe there was pre-derailment issues going on, but who knows. In no way would I say this coaster is rough, it just wasn't exactly comfortable, if that makes sense. Now that I've got the layout and experience out of the way, let's talk about my final thoughts on the ride. El Toro is a very solid coaster, and it is definitely one of my top 15 rides I've ever been on. And as of June 25th, 2022, the day I'm recording this video, I have 144 coaster credits, so that's a pretty bold statement. Despite the drop being absolutely insane, having those 2 airtime hills and that rolling Thunder Hill giving you such insane airtime, I just don't know if I can put this in my top 10 or even top 5 like a lot of other people. And I would say that there are some intense moments of the ride, but it's not the intensity you would find on Intimidator 305, Lightning Rod, or Maverick where you pull some insane G-forces, unless you're talking about negative G-forces with the airtime. It's more just intense with the airtime. This is a real run-on sentence, I know, but bear with me. I just never had a gray out moment or any moment where I felt like, yes, this is the intensity that I've desired. I'd say it's the same type of intensity as Voyage at Holiday World, where it keeps throwing elements in your face. Although I'm sorry El Toro fans, but I happen to think Voyage is miles better than this ride. El Toro was still a very fun ride though, so don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to bash the ride at all. I definitely wouldn't rank it this high if I didn't like it. This ride is also pretty re-rideable, if your legs are made of jello, that is. I know some people get bruises in their thighs, but I've happened to ride some of the coasters with the most violent airtime. I'm talking Magnum XL 200 at Cedar Point, Lightning Run, and Storm Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom, and El Toro itself. And I have never once came off a ride with bruises on my thighs. You know, now that I think about it, maybe my legs are made out of jello. If I had more time at Great Adventure and I didn't need to get all the other credits on a very crowded day, I definitely would have rode this more, especially since we had flash passes. So in terms of re-rideability, I'd say swim at your own risk, so to speak. Because let me emphasize this again, that airtime was so intense, I thought the restraints were going to chop my legs off, and then I'd come off the ride looking like Lieutenant Dan. The name of the game to this ride and its reputation all relies on its airtime, which for the record I would totally say is better in the back seat. Like I said before, you won't have a bad ride anywhere, and you'll still get some pretty insane airtime, but I think the Rolling Thunder Hill and drop will definitely hit better in the back. Nothing else on this ride is really that spectacular, other than its looks off-ride, but that doesn't really count. If I had to give a final score of this ride, I'd give it an 86 out of 100. Honestly, I would be tempted to give it a lower score, but because of those 4 airtime moments, yes, I'm including the drop, this ride absolutely has to get a high score. It's just that insane. The only other roller coaster in the world that I've rode so far that even gives airtime close to being that good is Magnum XL 200 at Cedar Point. So that's why this time I couldn't give a solid airtime score itself, because my biggest praise of the ride is also my biggest complaint of the ride. Half the ride has really unbelievably good airtime, and the other half of the ride has absolutely none. How bizarre. Well, that's about all I've got to say for El Toro. Let me know in the comments if you guys had any different experiences, or if you guys think I'm crazy, or if you agree with me. I don't know, I'm not the one to judge you. Everyone's got their own opinions, and I'd love to hear yours. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Keep God number one. We'll see you guys next time, here at Christian Coasters, where we make epic coaster vlogs and videos. Peace!